When former President Barack Obama makes a routine school visit, he witnesses something unexpected: a dedicated teacher secretly giving her own lunch to a hungry student. As he investigates further, he discovers Miss Eleanor Winters spends nearly a quarter of her modest salary feeding students whose families can't afford meals. What begins as simple admiration turns into a personal mission when Obama uncovers a shocking connection to this selfless teacher, one that dates back 30 years to a childhood promise he made but never fulfilled. Now he's determined to make good on that promise in a way that will change hundreds of lives forever. But first, he needs to understand the depth of one teacher's sacrifice and the children whose futures depend on her. Darius Wilson's stomach growled so loudly that the girl sitting next to him turned to stare. He quickly pressed his hand against his belly and looked down at his math workbook, his cheeks burning with shame. "Sorry," he whispered to Kesha, who just shrugged and went back to her division problems. It was only 10:30 in the morning, but Darius felt like there was a hole inside him. He hadn't eaten since lunch yesterday at school. Last night there had been a small bowl of cereal for dinner, but Dad had looked so tired that Darius told him he wasn't very hungry. That was a lie, but the lie meant his dad could eat something too. "Darius, can you come solve this problem for us?" Miss Winters pointed to the whiteboard where she had written 372 divided by 12. Normally Darius loved math. Numbers made sense when other things didn't. But today the growling monster in his stomach made it hard to think. He walked slowly to the front of the classroom, picked up the blue marker, and stared at the problem. "You can do it," Miss Winters said softly, "just like we practiced." Darius nodded and began to work through the steps. 12 goes into 37 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. Subtract 36 from 37 and you get 1. Bring down the 2. 12 goes into 12 one time. The room started to spin a little. Darius blinked hard and gripped the marker tighter. "Darius, are you feeling okay?" Miss Winters' voice sounded far away. "I'm fine," he said, but the marker slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. The noise seemed extra loud in the quiet classroom. Miss Winters placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Why don't you take a break? Kesha can finish this one." Grateful, Darius headed back to his seat as Kesha bounced up to take his place. Miss Winters leaned down by his desk. "When was the last time you ate something, Darius?" she asked quietly so no one else could hear. He looked down at his hands. "Lunch yesterday." Miss Winters' face didn't change, but Darius saw something flash in her eyes. Not pity, which he hated, but something else. Understanding, maybe. "I need you to do me a favor," she said. "Can you take these papers to Mrs. Martinez in the office?" She handed him a folder and a small paper bag that hadn't been there a moment ago. "Don't peek at those test papers," she added with a wink. Darius knew there weren't any test papers in the folder. It was just an excuse to get him out of the classroom for a minute. He walked down the empty hallway, his footsteps echoing on the worn linoleum floor. When he was sure no one was looking, he peeked inside the paper bag. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich, an apple, a small carton of milk. His stomach growled even louder at the sight of food. Miss Winters had given him her lunch again. She'd been doing this at least once a week since Dad lost his job at the factory 3 weeks ago. Darius knew he should feel bad about taking his teacher's food, but right now he was too hungry to care. He ducked into the boys' bathroom and quickly ate half the sandwich, saving the rest for later. The peanut butter stuck to the roof of his mouth, but it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. As he chewed, he felt the dizziness fade away. What Darius didn't know was that someone was watching the classroom door when Miss Winters had slipped him lunch. Someone tall with broad shoulders and a familiar smile that wasn't smiling at that moment, but instead looking thoughtful and a little sad. When Darius returned to the classroom, he placed the folder on Miss Winters' desk. "Thank you, Darius," she said. "Are you feeling better now?" He nodded, and this time he meant it. "Much better." "Good. Now let's continue with our lesson." Miss Winters turned back to the class, her voice strong and cheerful as she explained how to check division answers using multiplication. No one would ever guess that she'd just given away her lunch, or that she'd been doing the same thing for other kids all year. No one would guess that her car needed expensive repairs she couldn't afford, or that her refrigerator at home was nearly as empty as Darius's. No one would know that she'd been buying extra food with money she didn't really have, just to keep in her desk for days like today. No one except the man standing in the hallway who had come to Lakeside Elementary for a simple school visit but had stumbled upon something unexpected. Barack Obama watched the skinny boy return to his seat with new energy. He watched the teacher continue her lesson without missing a beat, and he decided to stay a little longer than planned. Sometimes the most important leadership happened off the political stage. Barack Obama stepped back from the classroom doorway before anyone noticed him. He wasn't supposed to make his appearance until the school assembly at 11, but he'd arrived early to get a feel for Lakeside Elementary. Now he was glad he had. The security agent assigned to escort him looked nervous. "Mr. President, we should probably head to the principal's office. Mrs. Martinez is expecting you." "In a minute," Barack said, his eyes still on the classroom. "Tell me about that teacher." "Miss Winters? Eleanor Winters. Been here about 15 years now. The kids love her." Barack nodded thoughtfully. "I can see why." As they walked toward the office, he noticed the scuffed floors and the water stains on some ceiling tiles. The building was clean but showing its age. Bulletin boards displayed student artwork, and motivational posters with curling edges hung on the walls. This school was doing its best with limited resources. Inside the principal's office, Gloria Martinez jumped up from her desk when Barack entered. "Mr. President, what an honor to have you visit Lakeside." She pumped his hand enthusiastically. "The children are so excited. Some of them didn't believe me when I told them you were coming." Barack smiled. "I'm happy to be here. These school visits are important to me." They chatted about the assembly plans. Barack would speak to the students about perseverance, take some questions, and maybe play some basketball in the gym afterward. Standard stuff, but his mind kept drifting back to the hungry boy and the teacher who fed him. "I noticed one of your teachers on my way in," he said casually. "Miss Winters, I believe." Principal Martinez beamed. "Eleanor is one of our best. The students adore her, and her test scores are consistently impressive despite the challenges many of our kids face." "Challenges?" The principal's smile faded slightly. "This isn't a wealthy district. Mr. President, many of our families struggle to make ends meet. We've had budget cuts 3 years running. Last year we had to eliminate our free breakfast program." Barack frowned. "That's rough." "It is. Some kids come to school hungry, and it affects everything: their concentration, behavior, learning. Our teachers do what they can. Miss Winters seems to be doing quite a bit," Barack said carefully. Principal Martinez gave him a sharp look. "What do you mean?" "I saw her give a student some food earlier." The principal sighed. "That sounds like Eleanor, always going above and beyond." She hesitated, then added, "She's had offers from better districts, places that pay more, have newer facilities, but she won't leave Lakeside. Says these kids need her." A bell rang, and the sounds of children moving through the hallways filled the air. "That's the assembly bell," Principal Martinez said. "Are you ready to meet your fans?" Barack nodded, but part of his mind was still thinking about Miss Winters and the hungry boy. The gymnasium erupted in cheers when Barack Obama walked in. 400 students from kindergarten through 6th grade roared with excitement. Many wore Obama campaign t-shirts or blue and red clothes in honor of the visit. Barack smiled and waved, genuinely touched by their enthusiasm. No matter how many times he did these appearances, the pure joy on kids' faces never got old. He noticed Miss Winters' class filing in. The hungry boy, Darius, he'd heard the teacher call him, looking more energetic now. Miss Winters herself stood at the back of her students, making sure they sat properly on the bleachers. She was younger than Barack had first thought, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and glasses that kept sliding down her nose. Principal Martinez introduced him with glowing praise, and then Barack took the microphone. "Good morning, Lakeside Elementary." The children cheered again. "I'm here today to talk about something important: believing in yourself even when things get tough." He shared stories from his political career, growing up without his father, struggling in school, facing critics who said he couldn't become president. The students listened wide-eyed. "The difference between good and great isn't talent," he told them. "It's how hard you're willing to work when nobody's watching. It's what you do when things get difficult." He glanced at Miss Winters as he said this. She was watching him intently, nodding slightly at his words. "Now, who has questions for me?" Barack asked. Dozens of hands shot up. He called on a small girl in the front row. "Do you still read books every day?" "I sure do," he answered. "You never stop learning." He pointed to a boy wearing an Obama pin. "How do you stay brave when you're scared?" Barack smiled. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." More questions followed. Who was his biggest inspiration? Did he get nervous before big speeches? Was it true he played basketball with celebrities? Then he called on Darius, whose hand had been patiently raised. "Did you ever feel like giving up?" the boy asked quietly. The gym grew still. It wasn't the typical question kids asked. Barack looked directly at Darius. Yes, many times, but I found people who believed in me. Teachers, mentors, family, they helped me believe in myself. Darius nodded seriously, as if absorbing this answer deep into his bones. After the assembly, Barack demonstrated some basketball moves in the gym, letting students try to guard him. Their laughter filled the space as he performed theatrical shots and let some of the older kids steal the ball from him. Throughout it all, he kept noticing Miss Winters, how she cheered equally for every student, how she slipped a granola bar to a small girl who looked tired, how several children instinctively moved closer to her, as if her presence made them feel safe. When the students finally filed out to return to their classrooms, Barack approached Principal Martinez again. "I'd like to learn more about your school's needs," he said, "particularly about that breakfast program you had to cut." The principal's eyes widened slightly. Barack Obama had come to Lakeside Elementary intending to inspire children. Now he wondered if he might do something more. After the assembly, while the students returned to their classrooms, Barack asked Principal Martinez if he could see more of the school. "Of course, we'd be honored," she said, clearly surprised by his interest. Most celebrity visitors are in a hurry to leave after their speeches. Barack shrugged. "I'm not in a rush today." They walked through hallways lined with student artwork and past classrooms where teachers had quickly resumed their lessons. Barack noticed how many of the children looked like Darius, thin, with clothes that had seen better days. Yet they were engaged, raising hands and participating despite whatever challenges they faced outside school walls. "Your cafeteria, may I see it?" Barack asked, remembering what Principal Martinez had said about the canceled breakfast program. The principal led him down a flight of stairs to a large room with long tables and a serving line. Lunch wouldn't start for another hour, but kitchen staff were already preparing. The smell of cooking food filled the air. "We serve about 600 lunches daily," Principal Martinez explained. "Over 80% of our students qualify for free or reduced price meals." Barack nodded, noting the implications. For many of these kids, school lunch might be their most reliable meal of the day. "Principal Martinez," a voice called from the office. "The superintendent is on the phone for you." The principal looked torn between her duty and her famous guest. "Please take the call," Barack assured her. "I'll just look around a bit more." Once Principal Martinez hurried away, Barack approached the lunch counter where a woman in a hairnet was stirring an enormous pot of what looked like macaroni and cheese. "Smells good," he said with a friendly smile. The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes widened in recognition, but she kept her composure. "Mr. President, what a surprise." She wiped her hands on her apron and extended one. "Tamara Jones. I've worked in this cafeteria for 20 years. Barack shook her hand. "Nice to meet you, Miss Jones. Just Tamara is fine." She studied him curiously. "What brings you to our kitchen?" "Hungry after all that basketball." He laughed. "Actually, I'm interested in how things work around here. I understand the school had to cut its breakfast program." Tamara's face fell. 3 years ago, budget cuts. It's been hard on the kids." She glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then lowered her voice. "Some teachers bring in food for students who need it. Granola bars, fruit, that sort of thing." "Teachers like Miss Winters?" Barack asked casually. Tamara's eyebrows shot up. "You know about Miss Winters?" "I saw her give a student some food this morning." Tamara hesitated, as if deciding whether to say more. Then she sighed. "Miss Winters does more than bring in snacks. She pays for full meals for kids who need them." "She pays?" Barack asked, surprised even though he'd suspected something like this. "From her own pocket. Has been since they cut the breakfast program." Tamara stirred the macaroni with more force than necessary. "Started with just breakfast for a few kids, but now she covers lunch for some too." "How many students are we talking about?" Tamara thought for a moment. "These days, probably 10 or 12 regular ones, plus whoever else looks hungry." "That woman spends at least $200 a week from her own pocket." Barack did some quick mental math. On a teacher's salary, that would be a significant chunk of take-home pay. "She thinks nobody knows," Tamara continued. "But I see her slip me the money when she thinks no one's looking. Tells the kids it's from an anonymous donor so they won't feel bad." "The school administration doesn't know?" Tamara shrugged. "If they do, they don't mention it. What could they say? Stop feeding hungry children?" A young kitchen worker approached them. "Miss Jones, should I start the vegetables now?" "Yes, Darren. And check the milk delivery. I think we're short again." While Tamara was distracted, Barack noticed a manila folder on the counter labeled special meal arrangements. When Tamara turned back, he nodded toward it. Records of the students Miss Winters helps? Tamara nodded. I keep track to make sure those kids always get fed, even when she's absent. She hesitated, then opened the folder. See here, these initials represent students, DW, ZC, TW, and so on. She pays for all of them. Barack scanned the list. There were 14 sets of initials with notes beside them. No peanuts, extra milk, likes carrots. She even remembers their preferences. He murmured. Miss Winters notices everything about her students, Tamara said proudly. Not just what they need to eat, but what makes them happy. She closed the folder. I shouldn't have shown you this. She'd be embarrassed if she knew. I won't tell anyone, Barack promised. But I'm curious. Why does she do it? There must be easier teaching jobs out there. Tamara smiled sadly. You'd have to ask her. But I will say this, she grew up not far from here. Knows what it's like to be hungry in class. She told me once that a teacher helped her the same way, and she never forgot it. A bell rang, signaling the first lunch period would start soon. I should get back to work, Tamara said. It was nice meeting you, Mr. President. Please, call me Barack, and thank you for talking with me. As Barack left the cafeteria, he passed a bulletin board with teacher photos. Miss Winters smiled from her portrait, looking younger and more carefree than the focused woman he'd observed earlier. The caption read, Eleanor Winters, 5th grade teacher of the year 2019, 2021, 2023. Barack stared at the photo. Something about her seemed familiar, though he was certain they'd never met. Maybe it was just that determined look in her eyes, the same one he'd seen in community organizers who refused to quit no matter the odds. He found Principal Martinez waiting for him near the front office. I apologize for leaving you, Mr. President. The superintendent wanted to thank you personally for visiting our school. No problem at all. I had a nice chat with Tamara in the cafeteria. Principal Martinez smiled. She's been here even longer than I have. A real institution at Lakeside. Barack nodded, then decided to press further. I understand some of your teachers help students who come to school hungry. The principal's smile faltered slightly. Our staff is very dedicated, especially Miss Winters. From what I hear, here, Principal Martinez sighed. Eleanor goes above and beyond. I've told her she doesn't need to spend her own money, that we can find other solutions. But, she shook her head. She sees a child in need and she can't help herself. That kind of dedication is rare, Barack said. Too rare, the principal agreed. And it comes at a personal cost. Last year she postponed needed dental work to buy winter coats for 3 siblings in her class. The year before, she skipped a family wedding because she couldn't afford both the plane ticket and the school supplies she purchases for students each fall. Barack felt something tighten in his chest. He'd known plenty of generous people in his life, but this level of sacrifice was extraordinary. Thank you for showing me around, he said. I've seen everything I needed to see. As his car took him away from Lakeside Elementary, Barack was quieter than usual. The buildings of Chicago passed by his window, but his mind remained in that school cafeteria, looking at a list of initials representing children who might go hungry without one teacher's sacrifice. He took out his phone and called his chief of staff. Valerie, it's Barack. I need to set up a meeting. There's something important I want to do. For the first time since leaving the presidency, Barack Obama felt the familiar surge of determination that used to fuel him in the Oval Office. He had a new mission now, and he wasn't going to rest until he accomplished it.